Hey, thanks so much for coming. Go ahead and sit down right there. And today you're going to be sitting for my oil painting. So, once again, I am so grateful. Thank you for your time. I know it might not be the most, interesting thing on your end, but I promise I'm very appreciative. So, just to start out, why don't you make yourself nice and comfy right there? Because obviously you're going to be there for a little while, so I don't want you getting stiff or, uncomfortable. Okay. And you know what? You can shut your eyes if you want. I don't mind. That's fine. Can I just... Okay, let me think about how I want to arrange you. This is pretty good, and I don't want you to, do anything that's going to be uncomfy. But do you mind just moving? If you could put your head down a bit over there. Yeah, like that. Perfect. Okay. No, and that's good, I think. That's a nice calm position. So, I have got today my canvas. So I am painting it on a fairly big canvas, I think. And this one, actually, I picked up, off the side of the street at some point, and it's a canvas with a print on it that says "Sand between my toes," and a picture of a beach. You can kind of see it through the through here, where it still says that, and I primed over it. But I can see why someone left it on the street. It was a very ugly print. And also it doesn't say anything like, I like the sand between my toes. It just says sand between my toes. Which I'm not sure if that invokes a good feeling for me. But anyway, I painted over it, and here it is. So, I've gesso primed it, so it's ready for painting on. And, of course, my paint is next. So, I've got a pack of many tubes of paint, and I'm just going to stick the most important ones on my palette. This always makes me feel like a proper artist. I don't know why, I think it's just because it's when you see a clip art of a person painting, they're always with one of these. But actually, I think it looks kind of nice with all the dried paint on it. So this is all old. I can see a bit where it's still wet, because of course, bloody oil paint doesn't dry for 1,000,000 years, so... Oh yeah, look. That's still squashy. And I've not painted with oil paint in a long time, so it speaks for itself. But anyway, I'm gonna put some of my oil paint on here, just the essentials, and then I can sort of mix the other colours from those. So let's do that. Just slide out my tray. This is a relatively new set, so that's good. So they're not going to be all jammed up yet. I've still got white left. And that is what I'm going to start with. So I've got the option between titanium white and Chinese white. But titanium white is the whitest one. So I'm going to use that one. And I'll just put a bit on here. You always need the most of white, more than any other colour. I'm going to stick it right there, amongst the old white. Okay. And then, what else will we need? I'm going to get some burnt sienna, because that one is always a good one to do the underpainting with. Ooh. Oops. Now it's actually shut. There we go. And stick some of that on here. There we go. What else? What other colours? I'm gonna do just a bit of all the primaries. Just because, you know, you can always use those to mix. But I'm gonna put some phthalo blue. So that one is like a warm blue, I guess, warm toned, sort of almost greenish. No, it's not green. It's not greenish, but it's like green toned blue, I guess. Stick some of that there. The great thing about oil paint is it's so thick that I can just hold the palette sideways. And then I'm also going to put a little bit of ultramarine blue. Ultramarine blue. Which, oh, it's got something gross on top. Which is like a cooler blue. But it's really bright and really clear. It's nice. So, get that on there. And of course, red. I'm gonna go for some red. So, pop them on there. And yellow. So I'm going to put lemon yellow, but also a little bit of yellow ochre, because yellow ochre comes surprisingly in handy with like skin tones and just like warm light and everything. I use a colour a lot. Make sure we got a good bit of that on there. I'm gonna put a little bit of black on. Oh, actually, no, I'm not. I'm gonna use burnt umber because it's really dark, and if I can avoid using black, I will, because it often doesn't look very natural, just because not much in real life is actually like a actual thick black, just a black. Normally you can get a much richer, nicer looking colour just by mixing all of your colours together and getting like a dark brown. And it, you know, you can tone it more blue, more red to suit whatever you're painting. But I always find like dark colour mix looks a lot better than just sheer black. Okay. What else? I think that might be everything. Yeah. I'm gonna leave it at that, I think. So let's put those aside. And then here is our new palette. But the next thing, obviously, is brushes. I've got my brush case. This isn't actually even all of my brushes, but it's the key players, the ones I use most. So, big fat rough brush. I think I'll be using this one today, just to do sort of like the rough, like, I guess outlines, sort of like blocking out the background and stuff. And then a nice thin small one for detail work. I've got some huge ones that I use sometimes to do like backgrounds, but I don't know what I'm going to do with that yet today. We'll see. I have a smaller one as well, maybe I could use that instead. Just to fill in the background. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. And then just like these, like these brushes that I can use for the general shape of your actual figure. So I think I want to start with the sort of mid-sized one, just to sort of draw it, I guess, to sort of block you out, make your shape. Maybe I will use this one, this sort of in the middle square one, because I don't need it to be neat yet, so it won't be. But I'll keep this one on me. Okay, so let's actually get started, shall we? I'm gonna use this one to begin with, and I'm gonna use that burnt sienna, and of course the third component, white spirit. So I'm gonna use just a bit of that white spirit to water down my burnt sienna, only because I'm just doing the underpainting, so I don't need it to be a completely opaque colour. And I'm just going to use that to map out sort of what I'm seeing. So starting with your head. I always tend to. I don't know why. And what I'm doing is just blocking out the colours, sort of where it's dark around you, I'll block that out, just so I've got the shape of you. So it's really good, I think, to have an underpainting, just because it's sort of the equivalent of sketching it out before you start, but you already get some of those rich tones in the paint from the burnt sienna. Just really helps your painting to look a bit more, yeah, richly coloured, I guess. So, just making sure that I got your, sort of the position of your arms right. So this is kind of also the stage where you make sure you got all the proportions down. Because at this point you can still change stuff because you're going to paint over it anyway, so just make it clear and block everything out. So I think I'm going to keep your background relatively plain like it already is, because I don't want it to really interfere too much with you. So I'm just going to completely actually block out that background. Just around you. I'm going to water that down a bit more. Yeah, so if you didn't already know, instead of water with oil paint, you use white spirit, because, as you know, oil and water don't mix. So, white spirit, it's like turpentine. It stinks. So every time I do an oil painting afterwards, I come out smelling like chemicals, but it's worth it. I really definitely prefer oil paint. to acrylic. Each have their own appeal, but for this painting I wanted to make it like, you know, this is the gesture I would use to describe oil paint. Okay, so I'm going to use sort of different levels of opacity to mark out the lights and the darks. So where it's really dark, like sort of in the shadows, like around your arms, like in the fold of your clothes and everywhere, all those shadows, those I'm going to use a really sort of just darker, less watered down burnt sienna. And for the light areas, I'm just going to really water it down, or, you know, barely touch it. Okay. So I think I'm almost finished with your sort of general composition. And just sort of blocking out more of the space around you now. Because in a lot of places it's darker than you, so I'm just shading that all in basically. Alright, so I think I've sort of got the general shape down. And now that will be ready for starting some colour. Now this is the long bit. So because I watered it down so much, it's you know, it's not that intrusive and it will dry quicker than usual. So now I just need to clean that brush, and I have got a system for this. That is the dirty white spirit jar and the clean white spirit jar. So use the dirty one to sort of get off the bulk of the paint, so you can see that it's pretty murky now. And then when you've got most of that off, you move to the clean jar. Yeah, and like you can see, at this point it doesn't, you know, get very dirty because most of it came off in the other one. But now I know that I've got a completely clean brush. And then I'm just gonna use my oil rag to dry that off. The good thing though about oil paint again is that you don't have to clean your brushes immediately if you're using lots of them, because it won't dry and like make them crispy. Now I'm going to start with the colours, and I'm going to use this brush, this kind of small one, and I'm going to start with your head, your face, yes. Let's get all the skin tones on first. I like to go from light to dark normally when I paint. So the secret for skin tones is almost all of them you can mix with white, and then a combo of red, yellow, and actually sometimes that's enough if you've got a pale skin tone, red, yellow and white on different like concentrations will make a nice skin tone. So more yellow if it's more olive skinned, more red if you've got pinker skin. And then for dark skin tones, you can add some brown. And then from there on, you can add more red to make it a warmer brown, or more blue to make it a cooler brown. So let's combine these to make your skin tone as best I can. Okay. I think I've got something relatively good. Yeah, that looks great. Obviously I'll add in sort of like shading in different tones anyway, so it doesn't have to be perfect first try. Okay, but I'm going to start with your face. So right now I'm just sort of blocking it out again and putting it where I can see this colour, so like in your cheeks and like your forehead and like the middle of your nose, your chin, because you have slightly different tonings like in the slight shadows of your face. But the fantastic thing about oil paint is that I can put this colour sort of everywhere and then mix different colours into it, like on the canvas, because oil paint stays wet. So I can get a darker colour for the shadows and just put it straight on there and it will blend in with this existing colour, which actually makes oil paint look really like smooth, and it's really ideal for realistic painting because the blending is so like flawless. So I'm also just going to, I can see this colour sort of a little bit as well in your like hands and like on your arms a bit, so I'm just going to add that in those. Because, you know, while you've got a colour mixed well, make the most of it. And also now, I've got the guidelines for proportion already from the underpainting, but I can sort of shift things around now if I need. So I've just seen actually that I did your hat a little bit wonky, so I'm amending that now. Try and stay still, please. Be patient with me. Okay, I think I fixed it. Looks good. Okay, so I'm gonna keep this brush out and just grab a smaller one. So I'm now going to go for this one. So this one is actually just quite like a little one, and I'm going to do the shadows with this. So I'm adding some of that, what's it called? Burnt umber. I'm adding some burnt umber to deepen it a bit, and I think that looks okay. I might actually add a little bit of blue, just because that came out looking just a bit too warm and the shadow is kind of cool. So I'm doing the shadow sort of like around your nose, and like there's a little bit sort of like by your mouth down there, and sort of under your chin. Yeah, so like the main shadows in your face, and like in your eye sockets. So I'm gonna just Sorry, I'm gonna really stare at you for this bit. And here I'm getting to see it in action, where this colour is blending really nicely into the last one. So it looks nice and smooth. Okay. My tutors at uni would be ashamed to see the way I'm holding my paintbrush. They always told me you should, hold it from really far back and like but I paint like I draw, so I hold it like right there. For such like close control. But I'm also not much of a really like expressionate painter. I'm like a realistic painter. And that was also something that my tutors wanted to, stretch me on a bit. They'd always be like, try doing like big and chunky, and I'd be like, no, I hate it. I don't want to. I mean, I did try, but I hate it. My style is just like this, I guess. Okay, so just gonna do sort of this part. Okay. It's also just a sort of bit of the shadow like around your hairline. I'm just gonna add that too. Okay. Let's add that shadow in the other places where you've got skin out. So like your hands. Hands are always a real pain. And everyone always says like hands are really hard to draw. Really hard to paint. Just because fingers, like if you just get it a bit wrong, it's really clear. Like if one finger is really chunky and the others aren't, it's very obvious. So I'm going to do my best here. So the other one as well. And a bit on your neck too, actually. Some of that same sort of shade. Okay. Then I'm going to darken it just a tiny bit more. Move on to the darker shade. Just blend that into my old colour. So really building depth, just sort of around your skin and your face and hands. I'm going to put some highlights on, I think. So, dipping it into my dirty roller. And then the clean one. And then just wiping that off so it doesn't water it too much down. And I'm just going to grab some of that white. And again, the joy of blending is that I can just put the white straight onto the face, and it's not going to make it white, it's going to blend in and just make it like a lighter colour that is already there. So, a little bit of highlight for like the tip of your nose, and sort of like on your, like the apples of your cheek, your cheekbones. And you've got sort of, yeah, it's sort of lighter like here, and there's like a tiny bit on your chin. So just like between your eyebrows. Just gonna use my finger. I always do that as well, actually. Use my fingers to blend it out. Just because then you get like no brush strokes and it's super smooth. Just gonna wipe that off on my... An artist's essential is to have the oil rag, which is just like, in my case, an old tea towel that I use whenever I do oil painting, just to wipe the excess off on, because normally you can just wipe it off and go into a new colour. So I've got like your general skin tone down, I think. Just between those three shades I had, I can sort of gradient it to look about right. And I'm not going to do the fine details yet, so I'm going to move on to your clothes and just sort of get those down. Okay, let's try and mix that colour. Does that look roughly correct? That needs a bit of white. I made it too dark. Where's my white? It's the only struggle with a palette like this. It's like I forget which is the fresh colour and which is the old dry colour, and I try and pick up some of the like crusty old white. Okay, here we go. Oh no, that does not look right. Stick some more white in there. Just gonna dip into that a bit. There we go. Nice. Okay, that's better. So again, I'm just sort of blocking it out a bit. Just doing your shirt. The really great thing about oil paint is that if you make a mistake, you can only just wipe it off because it's not dry. You can sort of like push the paint around a bit.
So I'm just going to start adding some sort of shadows to that in the darker spots. So like the creases in your clothes there. And there's some more shadows, sort of like the ones under your arms and such. So let's stick those in. Go. Okay, and then let's also shove some highlights in there. Mix in some white, and I think a little bit of yellow as well, because it's sort of a warm light. And just sort of accent it where there's a bit of a highlight. Okay, and the rest of your clothes as well. Let's just try and really block in the whole thing. So at this point I've got like very minimal underpainting left on you. You're almost all painted over. I like the outfit that you chose. It looks good actually with this painting. Also, it's fun to paint. You got good colours. Okay, so you're sort of all there now, minus the details. But I think before I do that, I'm going to I'm going to paint the background. But I'm not going to do that very like detailed because I don't want to take away from the focus on you. So I'm going for my big fat brush today. And I'm just going to use that to sort of darken the background and the space around you. Maybe I'm going to sort of point out some of the sort of shapes, but I'm going to keep it pretty, yeah, simple, I guess. So I think I'm going to use a lot of that burnt umber for that. Make it nice and dark. I always water down my paint as well, just because I like it to be really thin. Like I want everything to be like thin and microscopic details, which is very different. I remember when I was on my course that a lot of the painters around me, because I was in a studio with like, well, it's a huge studio, and like in my section were like 3 other people, but you'd have to walk through all of the artists to get to my bit, and it's just so nice. Like it's so interesting to see a group of like 60 people and everyone has such a clear individual style. It's all so different from one another. So like by the time I got to know everybody, you could look at like one random painting and be like, oh, that was this person's. That's clearly theirs, like by the style. And people are just so creative. That's something I think I lack. I don't think I'm very creative. I'm good technically, but like I like to work from photos or from life, like looking at something. I'm a portrait artist, so I want to do people, but I do them as they are, like I do them realistically. And some of the people I worked with would just come up with like such incredible ideas, just off the dome, and then just stick it on the canvas, and it's so unique and beautiful. Very jealous of that always. But yeah, I think a lot of people who use oil paint normally slather it on a lot thicker because it has a nice, like, lovely look to it, I guess. It's very rich, and depending on what you use, you can use lots of like linseed oil and stuff like that to make it really like glossy and smooth and shiny, or like add different stuff to it. You could. I had a friend who used to mix in sort of like dirt or cement or gravel and stuff into the work to give it a really textured look. It's so cool. But that's what's beautiful about it though, isn't it? Everyone has their own style. No two-person paintings will be the same. So I'm just filling in the space around you. Okay, so I've sort of blocked it all in now. I'm going to switch back to this one. Let's just clean that off a bit. Still got some skin tone on it. And I'm going to use that just to sort of do sort of the little details around you. But again, I'm not going to be too careful with it because it's only sort of like, it's like the blurred background in the photo. So I'm just going to do like sort of the lines of the furniture and such. Make sure I've got them in the right place in relation to you. Okay, just the last little bit. Okay, I think that's as much as I want to do on the background because I really want to keep that as plain as possible without looking just like a mark colour. So that just leaves doing the details on you. So I'm going to go back to my little brush for that. Where is it? There it is. Just clean that off. Okay. And so this is like most of the darks now. So like your like lash line and your pupils and such, and like your nostrils and the line between your lips, all that. It's the finer details that are a bit darker than the stuff I've done so far. So I'm going to be really careful with that now and get in some of my dark colours. I'm always, I have to try so hard not to lean my hand on the painting. I so want to rest on it. I need one of those bars. You know, you can get like essentially just like a wooden stick on wheels that you can like lean on it and wheel it around. So you can lean. That's what I need. Okay, sorry. Doing your eyes, get ready for some intense eye contact. Sorry, I just want to make sure I like mix the colour of your eye right as well. Okay. This is my absolute favourite part in the painting process. Doing like the finer details, because it goes from being like something that's like nah to like, oh, that's you, like that looks that looks like a person. But this also is the like most, if you get it wrong, it shows kind of part. Like you have to be really careful and fine with it. So like all the little details come in now. One that I find makes quite a palpable difference, you would not expect, is doing the slightest like shadow under where like the clothes end and the skin starts, because it just like, it's not noticeable when you're looking at the painting, but if you just leave like fabric up to the neckline and then skin from there on, it just doesn't look right. You have to do like a tiny little like dark line at the edge of the fabric, and it's not noticeable, it blends right in, but it somehow makes a world of difference. It's little tiny things like that that I do in this stage. So I'm just gonna mix together some of the little detail colours as well. Alright, what have I missed? Your hair, I think, needs some more detail. I only did sort of like the chunky colour. Sometimes you can get away with it with hair and sort of make it all blend in together, but I think it really is like, it makes a nice finishing touch to have some like individual hairs that you can see more sort of highlighted. For that I'm going to need a smaller brush though. So I've got this one, which you can see is really, really tiny. And I'm also going to wet it a bit. And all that does is make the paint sort of flow really finely. It does make it a bit less opaque, but I think it's worth it to get like a really clean line. Especially with something where you really only want to do it once, like with a hair. So I'm just going to add a little bit of detail in the hair. Just some little flicky bits, I guess. Okay, I'm also just going to do in the sort of like shiny highlights, I'm going to do a couple as so like sort of where the line hits here there. And also a little bit on the other side. Just to give it a bit more texture. Okay, so now that that's done, I just want to do like tiny highlights now. So like, oh, the best part is doing the little white dot highlight in the eye. I'm going to use this tiny brush for that as well. So I'm just going to pop that on both eyes. It just makes it look so much more alive. Okay, so any other fine details I can do with this brush? Little like lines on the lip actually sometimes I've got it. Do just some of them. So I've got hairs, I've got the details, anything on the clothes, oh, tiny bits. Okay, I think that might be all my details done, and with that, painting done. And this is the mess I made of the board. But, wow, I'm actually really happy with that. Considering how quickly I did it, I mean, I know it wasn't quick, but in the grand scheme, it was quite quick to do a painting. Considering how fast it was, I think I've done actually quite a good job. And that is no small part from your fantastic patience. Thank you so much for sitting for me and being so cooperative with me. You've made a perfect model. I think it looks really great. Thanks so much for coming, and I really do hope you'll do this again for me sometime because I had loads of fun, so I hope you did too. Alright, see you later.